How do I get out of here?
Now that the technology's been invented, it seems like we may be entering another Renaissance-type period from Disney. With more room to play and less time devoted to innovating, the future is bright. So we're looking at all those pesky little elements that took movies like Snow White and turned them red. But before we dive in, you should probably subscribe to our new channel, The Things Animated, to get all the hidden secrets and unique theories behind your favorite animated movies and shows. Number 1. We're about to get all tangled up in hair history. Tangled was the beginning of a long journey, stopping along the way in movies like Frozen and Moana, to get to Encanto, the first animated movie to feature every single hair type. Rapunzel's 70 feet of hair couldn't ever be perfectly flat. Her 140,000 strands were broken into 147 groups, because animating that many individual hairs is obviously a problem. This would be the forerunner to tonic, the industry standard for designing hair today. This evolved in Frozen, where they learned how to braid using the new grouping technology they'd created. Stepping away from Walt Disney Animation Studios over to Pixar, they were working with the program Taz to figure out how to give the spring-like texture to curly hair in Brave, a feature that we wouldn't see in Disney until Moana, where they developed an elastic rod model for the hair to hold its curl and make it easier for the characters to interact with. They also developed a program called Quicksilver to automatically pose hair, which harkens back to Disney's hand-drawn animation, with dynamic and flowing locks that defied the logic of CGI programming. The shading and curling technology from Moana was pushed to the extreme for Encanto, where they finally nailed doing full coils and many shades of hair. The early days of CGI were a step backwards in animation, as it took years to rebuild these tools that hand-drawn movies already had access to in their own way. Now they've gone to infinity and beyond.
I was never even had a bad hair day, but whatever.
Number 2. One glass bottle changed everything. Cars needed complex reflective surfaces its entire movie, and so automatic reflection was developed. This model was scrapped for Monsters University, though. Anytime a light was added to a scene, it automatically created the necessary reflections on every character and object. Cars 3 took the reflections further again by creating a bump roughness technique, allowing for imperfections to reflect light separately. This all started with one moment in a bug's life with a glass bottle.
I'm sorry, a magician never reveals his secrets.
Number 3. If they animated Sully's every fur by hand, Monsters, Inc. would have come out in 2023. The invention of simulation was revolutionary for many things, including fur, in that it allowed the animators to not have to animate every single one of Sully's 3 million pieces of fur by hand. The fur could respond to things like movement, wind, and gravity. Remember that dog in the first Toy Story? Fur tech has come a long way thanks to Sully.
You've been jealous of my good looks since the 4th grade, pal.
Number 4. So can you fathom how hard it is to animate a man playing the piano like they did with Soul? The piano rig they created was technically playing the music all by itself. Joe was just animated alongside it. He had 292 controls in each of his hands, far more than Miguel and Coco. But just look at 101 Dalmatians. They only had very small snippets from behind of Roger playing the piano. And now we get these gorgeous close-ups.
I was born to play.
Number 5. Cooking in animation is as deceptive as billboards for burgers. Food has come a long way from Ratatouille to Turning Red. They studied food photography for Ratatouille and developed a technology for light passing through food inspired by the clownfish in Finding Nemo. The hope was that no food would look waxy, hard, or plastic. Turning Red took cooking to the extreme because it needed to honor the anime style. Borrowing from what was learned in Bao, they managed to give us such juicy-looking lettuce. The key was in perfecting the glossy texture. Have you ever wanted to eat lettuce this bad?
Wouldn't you rather hang with Dad?
Number 6. Populated settings weren't always a reality in animation. Turning Red created a program that can show the diversity among all of the other characters in a scene in one single frame. Encanto also had very complex background characters with a range of different skin tones and hairstyles that pushed boundaries. It's easy to populate towns and cities with characters now, as opposed to Toy Story, where they tried avoiding animating humans whenever possible. The Pizza Planet scene is so void of any life forms that it's just uncanny when you watch it back.
Great idea, Woody. I like your thinking.
Number 7. The moment is finally here. Hand-drawn animation is trendy again. Well, sort of. 2D elements were used in both Soul and Turning Red, due to their incredibly unique animation styles. Creating the great before in Soul was an interesting challenge. The Jerrys and Terrys of the world required new technology to be developed. They started with wire puppets to reshape the characters and see what would be possible when they transitioned to on-screen, calling it a living line, while Turning Red had problems animating things like the 2D eyes of the character. While we may never see another truly 2D animated movie from Disney again, we can expect to see more of this hybrid design in the future.
My panda, my choice, Mom.
Number 8. Nemo paved the way for Luca to be more creative. Finding Nemo was innovated in its water techniques. The key to that beautiful underwater look was light passing through objects. The jellyfish were a challenge. They didn't just need them to be transparent like glass or translucent like a shower curtain. They were more distorted like bathroom window glass. Depth was another factor. The further into the background creatures and objects got, the blurrier they became, just like in real life. The water evolution we got from Luca was much more stylized, because they were able to do things like graphic EQing on a much larger scale for the waves, which meant they were able to change the size of all the waves in one shot.
I'm amazingly bad at swimming.
Number 9.
Where is my super suit?
In the first Incredibles, the characters weren't even wearing suits. They were just painted onto their actual body. That explains why they were all so skin tight. Now, coming into The Incredibles 2, they finally created real supersuits, working to preserve things like wrinkles in fabric that moved realistically with motion. That bump roughness they created for Cars 3 came in handy for creating the suit for Elastigirl, that held its details even while stretching. The detail in Elsa's dress from the first Frozen movie to its sequel was immaculate. Every thread can be seen up close. This was taken further in Encanto, where all of the clothes have the characters' personality patches in great detail.
There's gotta be an answer. Something we're not seeing.
Number 10. Toy Story had very limited movement when it came to swiveling around, but now there's as much freedom with moving the camera as there is in live action. WALL-E changed everything. The first act was meant to feel like it was an actual camera operator shooting. It took time for the camera to find the action of the shot and then refocus on the characters. Number 11. Sequels are the ideal place to develop wave technology. Frozen 2's waves got to look so realistic that they actually had to dial it back. But before Frozen 2 came Cars 2, where they'd developed Tessendorf to simulate the dangers of choppy waters. Number 12. Which has more points? Creating smooth surfaces came with the short in A Bug's Life called Jerry's Game. Compared to Toy Story, it was a huge leap forwards, because the skin in Toy Story didn't exactly look smooth or real, but a bit more like unrefined polygon shapes. The new development was the subdivision technique, where when you divide the lines enough times, it appears smooth. Number 13. Disney was late to the party on transitioning to CGI. Pixar, which had started the trend with Toy Story, was doing awesome at the box office. DreamWorks had hits like Shrek, and Disney struggled to catch up. Remember Chicken Little? It's okay, you don't need to.
Today is a new day.
Number 14. Congratulations, you can now animate pimples! CGI movies had very little texture at first. Toy Story 2 added shading to it to differentiate between the toy's more plasticky skin and the humans like in the first movie. This addition allowed them to detail the skin with things like veins, pores, and sweat. Number 15. Finally, broad shoulders. The Incredibles was revolutionary for creating layers of muscle. The company hadn't worked with characters who had broad shoulders like Mr. Incredible before. That's why Andy's toys, Buzz and Woody, had ball and socket joints and stitches. Number 16. Frozen 2 was different from any other movie because the elements were characters. The crew had to figure out how things like wind behaved, which was separate from the programmed weather. This had opened up a whole world of possibility for the future of animation, like perhaps Pixar's Elemental, and even looking at the design of Tafiti in Moana, she was more human than Element.
Tafiti! Hey, how you been?
Number 17. Do you think Hank got named Hank because of the phrase hunky-dory? The octopus, Hank, from Finding Dory, never could have appeared in Finding Nemo. It was impossible at that time to create characters without any sort of bone structure, never mind the jellyfish. The range of sea life that became possible for Finding Dory was impeccable. Number 18. The hand-drawn animators were cheating all along. The transformation in Luca was done in full view of the audience, one scale at a time. This is very different from Disney's hand-drawn transformations, like Cinderella and The Little Mermaid, which relied on bright glowing lights and silhouettes to disguise the transitions. Number 19. The future of animation is virtual reality. While we may not be a long way off from a full VR movie, the live-action The Lion King already capitalized on virtual reality as a tool for creating worlds, specifically the trees. They wanted this movie to feel more like the real world, rather than the stylized animated The Lion King. Not every tree is perfectly arranged. This crafting in VR will prove to be one useful tool among many. In just under 100 years, animation went from pencils to VR. Number 20. Ye Olde Objects. In Toy Story 4, the wear and tear on objects became super important, given the thousands of antiques in the store. Borrowing from Cars 3, they further developed micro-damaging objects. The program has 3 levels, from newish objects to extremely worn out. Disney's always keeping us on our toes. Do you think we will see an animated virtual reality movie from them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.